Welcome to Coleman Report Live. I'm Bob Coleman. We're talking Main Street and the small business lenders who helps it grow. Lance Sexton, thank you very much for covering for me last Friday. I appreciate it.
We had a fun day on Friday, Bob.
Excuse me. And John Riosti, good to see you in the house. Hey, we got big news, John. We can talk about something today. What do we got?
Budget.
And it passed. I don't know. I passed the House and the Senate, and I assume the President, I don't know when he signed it. But first of all, before we go through this, it's obviously good news. John, define zero subsidy for me.
Zero subsidy means the government, not SB itself, but the federal government will not have to kick in any money to pay for credit costs, that the program is paying for itself, meaning the borrowers and lenders who participate in the program are paying for the program. And that's a very good sign of overall health.
That is. Yeah, we had a subsidy back during, obviously, the Great Recession and also recently. Lance, what are the three components of revenue sources to cover that subsidy?
Well, the primary sources of revenue are guarantee fee paid by the borrower. Of course, during the pandemic, we had periods of no guarantee fee. But in normal operations, guarantee fee. Another source of revenue for the program is ongoing fees paid by the lender on their portfolio. And then there are a variety of miscellaneous fees that are collected, review fees and other types of fees that are collected that are part of income. The outflows are guarantee purchases and the cost of the program. But the program basically, from collection of guarantee fees and ongoing fees, pays for itself.
John, we ran an article several years ago that said SBA is actually profitable for the government, the only agency out there. And I think that, you got to throw out the PPP. That's someone on the con side. I don't have a good argument against that, but just straight 7A and 504, that covers the stuff. And we're not even talking about the tax implication of new employees and growth, et cetera, et cetera. We're just talking pure nuts and bolts.
When everything works well, this is one of the most successful and productive.
It really is, yeah. And that's why we're going to give a shout out to someone who's retiring, but over the years, the community has done a very good job on educating Congress, specifically the Congress Republicans who historically in the 80s and 90s wanted to get rid of it until they understood, it pays for itself. That's a good thing. Okay, we'll support it. And ever since they got that message, the SBA has been in a solid position. $30 billion for 7A, which is a bump over last year. It looks like we're confused because, John, I don't know about you, but I confess I did not read all 2,700 pages. I apologize. I will.
No, I didn't either. And the question is, the $30 billion for 7A and zero subsidy is good news because I think $30 billion should be enough to cover program operations this year. The question is 504.
Well, 13 billion is a bump.
Yes.
And that from what anecdotally I've heard, 504 will be fully funded to the end of September. Obviously, if I'm wrong, I will be corrected. I feel pretty good from all the little stuff we've seen out there to make that statement. And John, you're nodding your head, so I think you're agreeing with me. You and I are on the limb together.
Yeah.
We're on the limb together, yes. We're all out there. But if that's the case, then 13 billion should be enough. And we should note that it's just remarkable growth.
Absolutely. And also, this is exclusive of the administrator's unilaterally authority to increase it by another 10%.
Yes.
So we're now coming up on 6 months of the fiscal year, so we're about halfway through, so we have a pretty good idea what the numbers will look like.
Yeah.
I also confess, John, and I'll put you on the spot, I don't know what else is in there for SBA. It is obviously very complicated, and we're going to tear it all apart this week. Anything else stick out, or are you in the dark the same as I am?
I am just looking through it now, and what I didn't see, what I have not seen yet, because these are long bills, but they're a lot of it is sort of built by formula. But what I have not seen yet, what I was expecting to see, is the any type of appropriation for
Direct
lending.
Very good.
So
That's well, for the majority of our people who answer the poll, that's good news. There's others
Yeah.
who agree. The other thing I've heard is restaurant revitalization is not in there, or any other special, specialized COVID-related fundings. I think those are all gone now, aren't they, John?
no, those appear to be all gone. What we have is traditional SBA.
Yeah, business as usual.
Do we
Yes.
even want to touch idle? In terms of the authorization and what's going on with that, John, do you follow that at all? Is that probably a little outside?
I haven't followed it as much because it's a PPP program, to be sure. It's a COVID relief program, but it's a direct program, so
Right.
it does not involve the banks that I cover.
So this is what we have for right now. We'll obviously tear into it. We'll come up with more, but our initial assessment is no additional COVID-related funds. They were talking about franchise. They were talking about, I guess that wasn't COVID, but it was the bad franchise type situation.
Yeah.
Restaurant revitalization, all the direct lending programs. We don't see that. We do see the $30 billion 7A. We see it on a 7A subsidy and $13 billion. So from my perch, I think that's for the lender's perspective, that's a thumbs up.
Yeah, it's a quality budget.
Yes.
Okay, very good.
One quick thing. The franchise proposal came very late,
Right.
so that they didn't. The lawmakers really didn't have a chance to adequately discuss that. So I wouldn't be surprised if somehow that comes up again.
Well, Elizabeth Warren's pretty tenacious. Also, that is something that's not necessarily SBA related. That could be thrown into CFPB, other types of.
Yeah.
I agree with you. It's not here. That doesn't mean it's dead.
Right.
Let's see. Senator Guzman says that her quick numbers are $450 billion to 6 million entrepreneurs. It's interesting in this discussion, there's two camps starting to evolve. Well, the one camp is defending PPP, defending the speed to market, and defending what happened and the disaster would have unfolded. And then you have the naysayers who are saying it was a complete waste. So I think that's going to be prevalent, and I think it's up to the industry and to us to spread the word that, yeah, there were issues, but they were paid for. But let's not forget the overall good. Go ahead, John.
I was going to say, if you go back to early 2020 or to the spring of 2020, you have those two remarkable numbers. One, I guess it was, they were quarterly numbers, but one was the biggest drop in employment in U.S. history, the biggest increase in unemployment.
Is it 23%? I'm guessing, but it was
followed
huge.
Immediately by the biggest swing in the other direction.
Right.
Yeah. The very next quarter. So it's hard to say that PPP, because that was absolutely the hot time of PPP, the spring and summer of 2020, that it had no effect on that.
Well, Lance, I talked about this. What would have happened if they waited a year to get PPP out?
Oh, it would have been a disaster, Bob. And one of the things in the reports that I look at that there was a big difference between PPP and pandemic support in 2020 and 2021. And some of the reports talk about how much of the money went to the owners of the business. Well, 2021, the PPP money mostly went to the owners of the businesses. There were a lot of contractors, independent contractors, sole proprietors, single employee operations that got PPP funds. So yes, in 2021, most of the money did go to keep independent contractors, sole proprietors up and running. And that was part of trying to reach underserved markets. In 2020, when we saw that dramatic drop in employment and then a dramatic uptick in employment, that was PPP back when it was mostly for employers with employees. So I think the program did exactly what they hoped it would do. And I think if you pick these reports apart, you can find, it's like talking about fraud. Yes, there's fraud in PPP, but as in perspective to how many loans were done and how many businesses were helped, it was relatively small.
Yeah, just like loan loss reserves. Yeah, there are going to be some bad actors. And the difference this time also is they're coming down on them. They're not waiting 6-7 years and plotting a loan. So that is definitely good news. The criticism I have of that report is they are assuming if you're a sole proprietorship, you're getting all those PPP funds yourself. And sole proprietors can have employees. So that, for them to say these sole proprietors kept all the money, no. It's on that. Hey, I wanted to give a shout out to Roxanne Sardina with Tri-Counties Bank up in Northern California. Okay. Roxanne's been in the business for years. I don't have to say how many, but she's retiring today. And I've known her for a number of years. Congratulations. And I just want to put this in perspective for the next generation coming up. We, especially now that Lance and I have the elder hat on. Yeah. When Lance and I started, the SBA program was dirty. It was government waste. It was cronyism. It was different. Picking winners and losers. And you said SBA, people would thought you were calling you were treasonous. So this generation of people who are now starting to retire worked hard. And I think the biggest takeaway, Lance, to pat ourselves on the back, is the majority of these people operated the program the way it was intended, didn't rip it off. They weren't greedy and went ahead and got money to where it should have been. And through all that, created a vibrant Main Street and created a vibrant generational wealth to underserved markets. Remember, half our SBA loans go to first generation immigrants.
Well, I think the thing that having been in the business, Bob, like we have, I'm going on 40 years, pretty close to 40 years, Bob. It's changed so dramatically. And, you always hear, it's just like you said, Bob, years ago, you said SBA and people were like, whoa. Yeah, or, I don't want that, or I don't need that. And where SBA now is a positive. And more people on Main Street have been exposed to SBA lending in some form or shape. So it has certainly changed a lot over the years.
Yeah.
So, go ahead, John, please.
Add one thing also about SBA and bring it back to what you were talking about with the criticism, from PPP and the criticism of 2020 PPP, which was that not enough or very little of the money got out to underserved businesses, very small businesses, minority businesses, women-owned businesses, etc. One of the really key important things that highlighted is you need to have a relationship with a lender as a small business person, a deposit relationship. Sort of a money services relationship isn't enough. And one of the very interesting things that has happened since then is, in terms of banks dealing with really small businesses, is number one, the outreach. They're reaching out as much or more than they've ever done. And number two, some of the policies that kept small businesses, maybe I use this word carefully, but maybe intimidated small businesses in terms of having a lending relationship with the bank. Yeah. Things like overdraft policies and other things like that are being radically changed. They're going away, and you know, the banking industry that existed in 2000, if you really want to, you know, come down and criticize the industry, it doesn't exist that way anymore. So, you know, I hope,
1980, yeah, absolutely.
I hope that policymakers understand that they want to apply the appropriate remedies to, you know, the situation as it exists now, not try to, you know, come in 2022 and fix the way things were 5 years ago.
As I said the other day, you know, 2012 was 10 years ago, which is really light years in terms of technology, where we are in the history. And sometimes we forget that. We plod along, but man, things are just changing around us like a cyclone. Lance?
Oh, there's no question about it. Things have changed so much, and they're continuing to change. You know, fintech is being embraced by traditional lenders now. Every bank that is involved in small business lending is trying to find a better, quicker, easier, more customer service friendly way to extend small business loans and small business services to the Main Street.
And vice versa. Fintechs are trying to learn from banks. They're realizing these are not. Lance, John, I just had my house refinanced, and someone said, well, who'd you go with? I blanked. I don't even know who my I don't know who I refinanced with. It was buying gas on the corner. It was a commodity. That isn't SBA. These are one-off. These are handcrafted solutions to every difficult problem.
Yeah, and I was going to say, you know, the fintech thing, you now more and more every day, you have online account opening, you have you know, different and you know, different ways to evaluate credit. It's not just all you know, the way it used to be. It's changing, and you know, to get back what I said, I hope the policymakers, you know, are up to date in their remedies, and they're not trying to fix 2019, 18, 17 problems.
Yeah,
the industry.
Jim, our friend Jim, thank you so much for weighing in. He said the funding reallocated. Obviously, Jim has read part of the 2,700 pages. Thank you, Jim.
Yes.
Funding reallocated to give more to regular program, less to refinance without expansions. So that's, I know there's different issues. Gentlemen, a great conversation. I really enjoyed it. Sometimes it's nice to put things in perspective, and I didn't come in today with that in mind, but that's where we ended up, and I think it was a great discussion. Yeah. John, thank you so much. Yeah, we'll let you surprise us next week what you're working on. Lance, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, and join Lance's webinar on Wednesday on where we are on PPP servicing with all the new changes. Thank you for joining us today for Coleman Report Live and for supporting America's Main Street, one entrepreneur at a time.